So, welcome everyone to Roadmap to Frankfurt 2020, Building Your Rights Business. My name is Catherine Mitchell. I'm pleased to see you all here together at this Professional Development Day, Growing Your Business, which has been generously sponsored by the Ontario Media Development Corporation. We would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Wendat, the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, Métis, and Mississaugas of the New Credit First Nation. Today, the meeting place of Toronto is still the home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island. We are grateful to have the opportunity to work in this community on this territory. And at the end of the day, we hope that you will certainly be better informed about participation at the upcoming Frankfurt Book Fair that you are able to attend. We do have a very ambitious program today, and so thank you for sort of helping us stick to that. Presenter bios, as you can see, are short. These people that you have are very illustrious and have much more that you could read about should you be inclined, but the essence is in your program. I know that they would be pleased to connect with you at the breaks, and there are a number. I know not everyone can necessarily stay throughout the day, but please try and take full advantage. You have a name tag, and this is a networking opportunity. I would remind the presenters kindly to please adhere to the time allotted to you so that we keep everything on track. If there is an extra bit of time, that obviously is a time for questions. And to you, the participants here in the room, please keep any questions which you have just short, but we obviously want to make sure that they get answered. Now, it is my great pleasure to introduce Karen Thorne-Stone, President and CEO of the Ontario Media Development Corporation. The OMDC is funding today's event, for which we're very grateful. Both Karen and the agency are well known to people in this room, and it is for their strong support to Ontario book publishers and their activities. So thank you, Karen, for your leadership, to the agency, for your continued support to the publishers and events like this. And now, if I could ask you to come up and say a few words and then introduce our morning speaker, keynote speaker.
Thank you, Catherine, and good morning, everyone. I always get a little embarrassed when I get credit for what OMDC does, because we've got a team of people that are actually doing all the heavy lifting, who are sitting at the back table this morning. But please say good morning to Janet and Christine and Aaron, who are part of your publishing team at OMDC. And I'm glad to have the opportunity to be here for a minute with you this morning. With Canada as the country of honor at Frankfurt 2020, we obviously have an extraordinary opportunity to really spotlight Canada's publishing industry to the world, and I hope that we also have the opportunity to boost some of your international sales. So that's what today's program is all about. The Roadmap to Frankfurt offers you the chance to plan ahead by learning more about building your rights business, and to hear from some of your peers that have been building theirs for a while and continue to grow their rights strategies. You're going to learn about one country's very successful experience as the Frankfurt guest of honor country, and you'll get an opportunity to hear about the German book publishing market. So not a bad program for just one day. It doesn't stop there. Apparently a bunch of publishing companies will have the opportunity tomorrow to spend some time one-on-one with rights experts to get some real concrete tips on how to best prepare for the market that's ahead of you in a couple of years' time. OMDC obviously believes that rights and export sales really do offer an important opportunity for growth for our publishing industry, so we're really pleased to be partnering on this business program today. Innovative forums like this fit right in with OMDC's economic development mandate for Ontario's creative industries. We're investing in our publishing industry, in our screen-based and our music sectors, to ensure that our creative industries continue to drive economic growth, to create hundreds of thousands of high-value jobs in this province, and that all of you and your companies can really compete successfully in the international marketplace. And rights and export sales are an important part of that equation. So here's hoping that today's a very successful and valuable program for all of you. And I also have the pleasure this morning of introducing you, if you need it, to your morning keynote speaker. Sarah MacLachlan has many, many talents. It's a little bit hard to know where to start when introducing her, but she's certainly an accomplished business leader. She's a visionary, both for her own company and for the Ontario publishing industry that she champions at every opportunity she gets. She's a former board member of OMDC, which is probably her greatest claim to fame, let's face it. And she's a strong, determined, and gifted woman, which is saying something in today's business environment. Sarah's leadership has made House of Anansi Books and Groundwood Publishing one of Canada's most successful and important independent publishers, and that's in part, I'm sure she'll tell you, due to rights sales. House of Anansi has had a tremendous number of wonderful success stories over the years, which are familiar, I think, to all of you, but I'm going to highlight just one of them this morning, which is kind of a current favorite at OMDC because of its page-to-screen lineage. Barbara's laughing over here. She's tired of hearing about this. Long after its initial really strong release and its introduction into the school curriculum and so on, Deborah Ellis's groundbreaking book, The Breadwinner, took on Oscar proportions recently with its screen adaptation, which was nominated in the Best Animated Feature Film category for an Oscar. And along with, it brought with it, I guess, important recognition for the author, for the publisher, and for all of the talent behind that project, which included producers, animators, and voice talent and so on, all based here in Ontario. The film garnered top prizes from the Los Angeles Film Critics Association, from the Toronto Film Critics Association, and it picked up a couple of Canadian Screen Awards just last week. But all of that, of course, started with the rights to the printed word. And that's what we're here to talk about today. So I think it's safe to say that Sarah's got some stories to tell, some lessons to share, and probably a few secrets to success up her sleeve. So please join me in welcoming the president and publisher of House of Anansi Press and Groundwood Books, Sarah MacLachlan.
Hi, I may have a lot of talents, but I assure you singing is not one of them. So those of you who don't know me, I'm not her, just to get that out of the way. And Karen's entirely right about The Breadwinner, and really all the credit on that deal goes to Barbara Housen, who's our VP of Sales and does rights. And she was dogged on getting that book made into a film. So I don't think any of us anticipated it would be an animated feature, but that's part of the fun of book publishing. You just never know. So you've heard my name, you know what I do. I also wanted to thank Gillian Fise. I think I want to thank Gillian Fise, who's the executive director of Frankfurt 2020 and former rights director at Anansi, for asking me to speak to you today. But I do say I think it's a daunting task. Looking at the list of participants, I realize that there are many of you who have been going to Frankfurt for ages, and that I won't be telling you anything that you don't already know. And then there are some of you who have never been. And then most intimidating of all, there are visiting German colleagues who I'm desperate not to offend. So walking through this minefield, I'll talk about what I know, and that is my experience at the book fair representing House of Anansi. And I'll try not to take too much time in doing so. In fact, I think my talk clocks in, if last night's timing was correct, around 15 minutes. So that leaves us room to chat or ask questions, discuss restaurants that might be good to go to in Frankfurt, that kind of thing. So in preparation for the talk, I decided to do a bit of research. And as fate would have it, my colleague, Matt Williams, had come across this book, A History of the Frankfurt Book Fair, by Peter Weidhaus, published in English by our friends at Dundurn in 2007. I'm not going to lie to you, it was a bit dry. But I did glean some valuable info, like this little tidbit, and we begin with a quote. While the fair traces its beginnings to 1227, it was really in the time between 1454 and 1764 that Frankfurt acquired widespread renown as the leading trade center for books printed using Gutenberg technology, a literary mecca not only within Germany, but for the intelligentsia of Europe as a whole. From Antwerp, Basel, Paris, Venice, Amsterdam, Krakow, and London, as well as from within Germany itself, printers arrived in droves. In addition, the authors of the books being traded were also drawn to the increasingly popular book fair. Note, there wasn't a publisher in the group. I find the idea of being part of this history very appealing. The fact that the fair continues in the same city more than 500 years on is quite extraordinary and speaks to the enduring value and strength of the printed word. In this history, it was fascinating to read about the ups and downs of the fair, its rivalry with Leipzig, its ability to remain relevant as the times and book formats and delivery platforms have changed. What I love about the Continuum is the idea of the annual meeting of the global community of publishers and book people. Because if Frankfurt is anything, it is the chance for the multiplicity of book people from around the world to meet up for an intense week in a city that holds the printed word in such high esteem. No amount of virtual communication can replace the impact of face-to-face meetings. It is this personal interaction, above all else, that makes Frankfurt a valuable experience for book publishers. At Anansi, and when I say Anansi, I include our children's book publisher, Groundwood, our rights budget is somewhere in the neighborhood of $1 million. It has not always been so. We've grown that over the past 17 years. This includes not only foreign rights sales, but also subsidiary rights, including film and television, which we discussed around the breadwinner, or mentioned anyway. The guiding principle at both the adult and children's division is, when buying new titles, we try whenever possible to acquire world rights, plus film and TV. In doing this, we are spreading out the possibility for return on the investment and not relying entirely on our home market to deliver all the sales necessary to ensure profitability. To this end, attendance at international fairs is extremely important, and so you will find Groundwood at Bologna and Anansi and Groundwood at London and Frankfurt. At all these fairs, you will find us selling rights to publishers from around the world of our many literary titles. So here are some of the editions that we have sold. There's Katarina Vermette, Jill Adamson, Lisa Moore, Jacqueline Park, Ian Hamilton, Basic Black with Pearls. This is the full breadth of our publishing program, which includes crime and poetry, although there's not a poetry title up there, literature, and in fact our backlist, Basic Black with Pearls, was a 1987 title that we revived in the A-list, and New York Review of Books took a big interest in, and we reluctantly let them have it. I say reluctantly because we distribute into the States. And then on the Groundwood side, our international and subsidiary rights deals have been extensive, and we've sold all of these titles. There's The Breadwinner. How many countries have we sold The Breadwinner in, Barb? 23. So 23 countries for The Breadwinner. Sidewalk Flowers by Sydney Smith, Lisa Moore's Flannery. These are all titles that we've sold all over the world. And while selling at the fair may be our primary activity, one of the lessons that we've learned over the years, particularly on the Anansi side, is that the selling goes better if we're also buying. It's the back and forth of trade that has really made the difference to our program. We have long felt that our publishing program has been enhanced by publishing quality books and authors from around the world, and we do this under our Anansi International imprint. These authors and their titles sit next to our Canadian talent, one enhancing the other. So we've published authors out of the UK, like Misha Glennie, who did this book 8 years ago, McMafia, which is now an AMC TV show, and so once again, we have it back on the bestseller list. Sofi Oksanen is a novelist from Finland. She's Estonian, and she's an international literary sensation of the Atwood level, not maybe in English, but certainly everywhere else. Under the Hawthorne Tree by Ai Mi is a Chinese title we bought, which became, interestingly enough, a Heather's pick. The Accusation by Bandy is a North Korean author, a collection of short stories, the first fiction out of North Korea. And on the left, The Tobacconist by Robert Seethaler. He's an Austrian author who was up for the International Man Booker Prize. We ended up having World English on this book, and we sold it to Picador, and Picador ended up selling a truckload of these books. So while we didn't sell a lot of copies in Canada, the UK sold a lot of copies, and so we had the flow-through of their rights money to the author, which made it a profitable enterprise for us. So you see it goes both ways, buying and selling. So it's difficult for me to convey the Anansi Frankfurt playbook in a way that might be helpful or make sense to everyone here, as you all represent so many different aspects of the market. So I thought that perhaps the best thing I could do would be to give you the list of 10 things to do at Frankfurt that may help you in your pursuit of selling foreign rights. Rule number 1, do not hang out with fellow Canadians. Do not be water buffalo, all with your heads in, your butts out, and not letting any of that other international crowd come into your realm. You do not go halfway around the world to fraternize with people from home. No matter how tempting, do not go to your familiar comfort zone. Meet people from other countries. Buy someone you don't know a drink at the Frankfurter Hof. And on that subject, I'm sure that most of you in this room know that there are a number of places that act as the unofficial meeting spots outside the fairgrounds. The two principal places are the Frankfurter Hof Lobby Bar and the Hessischer Hof Lobby Bar. And if you're brave, after dinner, you might try to get into Jimmy's Cigar Bar, and it's a smoky hot spot at the Hessischer Hof, just beneath the lobby. That is the place where the more seasoned denizens of the fair hang out and smoke big stogies. Walking into any of these crowded, noisy places is the equivalent of being back in grade 9 and going to your first high school dance. The fear and loathing that grab at your gut as you enter the room is second to none. I've been going to Frankfurt for 20 years, and I still have that sensation. It seems that everyone knows everyone else, and you are the odd man out. Take courage in hand, sidle up to someone else who may be looking equally awkward and say, "Hi." Tell them this is your first time and see what they say. I can honestly say that I've made some of my best contacts outside of the official fair hours in these places. Rule number 2, when meeting with publishers, do not present your whole list. A way to ensure complete boredom and glazed eye look at you and never want to see you again. Study your scheduled appointments ahead of time. Be informed as much as you can as to who you're meeting and what they have acquired in the past. Select a few choice titles to present to them. There is nothing worse than being presented a list of books that you are not interested in. Rule number 3, be inquisitive. Even if you're not buying at the fair, ask each of your appointments if they've had a big sale recently or if they've heard of any interesting deals going down at the fair, or have gone down before the fair. This is one of the best ways to find out about the international market and to hear about who is buying what and what is working in the many different countries that are represented. You may find this information valuable when considering what to publish in the future. Frankfurt is a great place to come to understand trends in publishing. Rule number 4, never bring an author to the trade floor. Frankfurt is the center of commerce for Germany and indeed for all of Europe. You'll see the big Euro sculpture in the Euro Park as you walk to the Frankfurter Hof from the train station. What we are there for is the buying and selling of rights to the intellectual property that writers have entrusted us with. They should never be witness to how this is carried out. On a side note, did you know, and I hope this is correct because I gleaned it from this fantastic history, the word for publisher in German, Verlag, derives from the word meaning money man, literally the man who laid out the necessary sum to finance the printing. So, the way we talk about the books we publish when we're trying to sell them may be seen as a crass pursuit. In some instances, it's not that different from selling widgets, so never let an author look behind that curtain. Number 5, make your rights list small and portable. We long ago came up with the template for this pocket-sized rights catalog, and I think Barbara's going to share some of these with you at her session. They're easy to have in your handbag or back pocket so that when you meet that stranger in the bar after a day at the fair and they ask you what house you're with and you say House of Anansi, which they misunderstand and think they heard House of Nancy or, trust me, worse, or they simply didn't hear you at all, you can follow up that comment with this cute little catalog. And 9 times out of 10, that publisher will happily take it and look through it, and it will engender a conversation about what you publish and what they publish. Remember, we're all here for the same reason. We want to know about books and who is publishing what. Oh, there. I get carried away, I forget. So that's the Groundwood Mini and the Anansi Mini. Rule number 6, never underestimate the power of a tchotchke. It's worth investing in some buttons, and we've made some Frankfurt buttons for you all to take and have, because everybody loves a button. Or if you're feeling flush, a t-shirt and a tote bag. Now, I put the famous gold medal skaters in here just to give you some relief. We published them. They're our authors, and they love the tote bag. Believe it or not, they love the tote bag. Aren't they cute? I love them. Where was I? Publishers love this stuff and will happily take them off your hands. Of course, sorry, I've lost myself. What they generally don't want, except for in exceptional cases, is a printed copy of the book that you're shilling. It's best to have any books or manuscripts available as PDFs to send as soon as interest is expressed. Although there are folks who really want to read the printed book, but they are the exception rather than the rule. This photo is actually of Andrew Franklin from Profile on the left and an Italian publisher whose name I can't remember. Do you remember? No. Anyway, they loved their T-shirts and put them on immediately, and of course we had to make sure we had a photograph of that. Rule number 7, do carry a notebook, a small stapler, and a pen. Perhaps I'm a Luddite. In fact, I know I'm a Luddite. But this is the only way that I can keep track of who I see and what they are interested in. Also, take the time the night before or at breakfast to write at the top of each page who you're seeing, where you're seeing them, and the time you're seeing them. Most of the fair days meld together in a blur, so you want to have a written document of where you've been and who you've seen and who wants to read what. You may ask why a person needs a stapler. Well, it's the easiest way of keeping track of who you've seen, and that it's to ask that person at the beginning of each meeting for their business card and staple it to the page. In fact, Barbara insists that we do this and gives us hell if we don't, because when we come back for Frankfurt follow-up, she needs those cards and our team needs those cards to put into the database and to know who we're going to be following up with in terms of trying to make that sale. And these are a collection of my notebooks from the many years at Frankfurt. Now, rule number 8 is the plug for Leave Canada Books in the Canada stand. It is worth signing up to take a booth or a pied-à-terre on the stand. It's a great space in which to have meetings, and for the price of entry at Frankfurt, you have access to the little kitchen in which there is an espresso machine, which often breaks down, but when it works, it's fantastic. There is bottled water, both sparkling and still, Apfelsaft and cola, and beer. And there's nothing like being able to offer a tired, hungover foreign publisher a refreshment. You will earn the visitors' eternal gratitude and maybe sell them a book or two. The space is great to work in as well, and so that's our little Groundwood corner at Frankfurt. And we like to add a little flower or so, to make it attractive to the visitors. Rule number 9, fill out, that's the whole team from Frankfurt. Some of you are up here. Is that nice? You look good. Yeah, it was nice. Jilly, looking fab. Caroline, really nice. That green's good on you. Okay, rule number 9, fill out your grant applications. One of the great things about being a Canadian publisher is the support we get from both the federal government through Free Map program administered by Leave Canada Books, and from the provincial government through the wonderful OMDC-backed Export Fund. Both of these funds help enormously in defraying the costs of travel and accommodation in the world's most expensive trade fair city. Did you know that even Erasmus of Rotterdam, back in the 15th century, wrote extensively and bitterly of the cost and quality of Frankfurt Book Fair accommodation and the food? It's really nice to know that nothing changes. And finally, rule number 10, make reservations. We don't go for the food or the drink, really. I mean, who does like apple wine? I mean, really, who does like it? Well, actually, after a few glasses, I do. But try to reserve a couple of spots for dinner for enough people, even if you don't know who these folks are going to be before you go. After making all those friends at the fair, you'll probably have a ton to choose from. Oh, and try to learn a bit of German. Wir haben ein Reservieren für 4, aber wir sind 17 von uns. Ist das ein Problem? Translation, we have a reservation for 4, but there's 17 of us. Is that a problem? I'm happy to give you any other suggestions. I know it's all a bit glib and fast, and I'll take questions, but those are my tips for Frankfurt. Yeah? We will start to prepare in May, July. We start to get the questions, the requests in, and we take 3 people to Frankfurt. So we fill every single day. I think it's insane. We have something like, I'm trying to think, 140, 150 meetings over the period of the fair, not to mention all of the after fair stuff, where I know I probably overemphasized it, but those bars are the best places to find out about things and get conversations going. And actually, we've made a few deals in those places as well. Anybody? Okay. Brave? Not brave? I was fast, right?
Yes, but you were excellent.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you.
So, sorry, I want to
not on record for me, but for the purposes of Gary and the videotape. But thank you so much, Sarah. That was fantastic. And anyone who didn't take the notes of the 10 rules of Sarah MacLachlan is missing huge opportunities, as you can see, because these are two houses that are incredibly successful. So thank you very much.